The agent called it a great starter home. You remember that word? Starter. Like it was the first page of something, not the whole book. Like staying too long would mean you'd fallen behind some invisible schedule everyone else seemed to be following. The roof over the front door had a slight curve to it. The backyard was smaller than the photo suggested. The second bathroom had a light that flickered for the first 6 months. You bought it anyway. $187,000. The year was 2010. You signed the papers on a Tuesday, drove home alone, stood in the empty living room and listened to a house that was now, technically, yours. You told yourself you'd be here 3, maybe 4 years, get your footing, then move up. That was 15 years ago. Part 1, Year 1 and 2, the compromise you made. The moving boxes sat in the corner of the bedroom for 3 weeks. You kept saying you'd unpack them on the weekend. The weekend kept not arriving. Your mortgage was $950 a month. Your salary was $52,000 a year. After taxes, you brought home just over $3,100 a month. The math worked. Not with a lot of room, but it worked. 3 bedrooms, 1.5 baths. A garage that fit 1 car if you parked carefully. It was enough. You knew it was enough. But enough and satisfied are 2 different things, and somewhere between those 2 words was the version of yourself that kept looking at listings on your phone before bed. That's the thing nobody tells you about buying a house young. The moment you close, the clock starts. Not a mortgage clock, a social one. The question isn't whether the house works for you. The question, the one underneath every conversation at every dinner, is whether it signals the right things about where you're going. And a starter home, by definition, signals that you haven't arrived yet. The average American moves 11.7 times in their lifetime. Most of those moves happen in your 20s and 30s. You were following the timeline perfectly. There was no reason to think you'd be the one who didn't. You told yourself, 3 years, maybe 4, then up. You believed it completely. Part 2, you're 3 to 5. Everyone else is moving up. Year 3. The moving truck across the street arrived on a Saturday morning. You watched from the kitchen window while your coffee went cold. Your neighbor, same age as you, same neighborhood, bought around the same time, was shaking hands with a real estate agent, smiling. His wife was pointing at something on her phone, showing the kids. The new place was in a better district, bigger yard, one of those newer builds with the open floor plan. Everyone on Instagram seemed to be standing in. He came over to say goodbye. Good guy. He said, "You'll be next, man." He meant it kindly. You nodded and said probably yeah. That word, next, sat with you for a while. At a family dinner a few months later, someone asked, "You still in the same place?" Not unkind. Just the word still, the way it landed, as though staying was something that needed explaining. You started using the word temporary to describe your house, not to other people, to yourself. Like a small apology you kept making to no one. Here's what no one was saying out loud. Every time someone upgrades a house, the transaction costs alone run 6 to 10% of the sale price. On a $250,000 home, that's $15,000 to $25,000 gone before you've even bought the next one. Gone in fees, in closing costs, in moving trucks and new curtains, and a fence that needs replacing because the old one didn't transfer right. That's not an investment. That's the price of looking like you're moving forward. The pressure to upgrade a house almost never comes from needing more space. It comes from not wanting to be the person who hasn't moved yet. It is the most expensive form of social performance most people will ever pay for, and they'll pay it willingly because the alternative is standing in their kitchen while the neighbor loads a truck. You felt it, anyone would, but you looked at the numbers. And the numbers told a different story than the moving truck did. Part 3, years 6 to 8, the quiet decision. You did the math on a Tuesday night at the kitchen table. 2 columns. Left side, stay. Right side, buy the $380,000 house 2 neighborhoods over. The one with the extra bathroom and the finished basement and the street where everyone seemed to have the same car. Left column, mortgage stays at $950 a month. Right column, new mortgage, $2,150 a month minimum, plus higher property taxes, plus the transaction costs, plus the new furniture, because somehow the old furniture never looks right in a new house. The difference was $1, $200 a month. You sat with that number for a long time. $200 a month isn't just money. It's $1,400 a year. It's what you could put into an index fund every year, compounding quietly while you slept. It's the gap between a life built around appearances and a life built around math. You didn't make a dramatic announcement. You didn't tell anyone you decided to stay. You just stayed. You stopped looking at listings. You unsubscribed from the real estate emails. You deleted the Zillow app. Not in frustration. Just in the same way you'd stop reading a menu at a restaurant you weren't going to. There's a Wharton study on homeowners who held their properties through the 2008 financial crisis instead of selling under pressure. By 2022, they had accumulated an average of $83,000 more in housing wealth than those who didn't. They didn't do anything clever. They just didn't move. You were doing something similar, voluntarily. The house still had the flickering bathroom light. You fixed it, finally, in year 7. The yard was still small. The front roof cover still curved slightly at one end. Nothing about the house changed, but something about why you were there did. Part 4, year 9 to 11. The numbers start talking. You opened your banking app on a Wednesday morning. Not out of anxiety, for the first time in years, out of something closer to curiosity. The equity in the house had grown past $85,000. Not because you did anything strategic, because you stayed and you paid and the market did what markets do over long enough timelines. Your fixed mortgage was $950. Your neighbor who upgraded in year 8 was paying $2, $400 a month, and had mentioned twice that things were a little tight. The $1, $200 a month you hadn't spent on a bigger mortgage had been going somewhere. Not all of it. You lived your life, you spent money, you weren't eating rice and beans in the dark. But a significant portion had been moving quietly into accounts that were now saying things back to you in the language of compounding returns. Here's the number that doesn't get talked about enough. The median net worth of American homeowners is $255,000. The median net worth of renters is $6,300. That gap isn't mostly about income. It's mostly about time in one place, with one fixed cost, while everything around you inflates. Your mortgage was locked in 2010. Rent on a comparable house in your neighborhood had gone from $100 a month to over $900. You were still paying $950. A fixed mortgage, held long enough, becomes one of the most powerful financial tools most people never think to name. You were living proof of that, quietly. Part 5, year 12 to 14, from pity to questions. Something shifted around year 12. It's hard to put a precise date on it, but at some point, the tone of the conversations changed. It wasn't sudden. It was gradual, the way water temperature changes when you're already in the pool. The "you still there?" stopped sounding like sympathy. It started sounding like something else. A friend mentioned they were looking into refinancing. Another one said their property taxes had gone up again. Someone at work made a comment about being house poor, a phrase you'd heard before but that had, until recently, never applied to people you knew personally. One couple in your circle was selling their upgrade and moving somewhere, cheaper because the payments had become unsustainable. You listened to all of it and said very little. The house you bought for $187,000 in 2010 was worth somewhere between $320,000 and $350,000 now. You hadn't done anything to cause that. You hadn't flipped it, hadn't renovated, hadn't done a single thing that looked like a financial strategy from the outside. You just lived in it, paid the same $950 every month, and waited. The typical starter home in America sold for $250,000 in 2024. To afford it, a buyer needed to earn nearly $80,000 a year. The home you already owned, the one people had quietly pitied you for keeping, was worth more than what a new buyer needed an $80,000 income just to qualify for. There's a comment you'll see on videos like this. He forgot the part where people stop the pity and start hating you, like you cheated somehow or got lucky. It's accurate. There's a specific social friction that comes with being the person who didn't play the game everyone else was playing and won anyway. It doesn't feel like winning. It feels like standing still while the room rearranges itself around you. You didn't announce anything. You never did. But people started asking different questions. Part 6, year 15, the morning nothing changed. It's a Monday. You make coffee in the same kitchen you've made coffee in for 15 years. The mug is one you've had since year 3. The countertop has a small chip. The sink, from when you dropped a cast iron pan sometime around year 9. The light in the front hallway still has the same fixture you meant to replace and never did. because it worked fine and fine turned out to be enough. Outside, the front roof cover still has that slight curve. The yard is still small. Nothing is different, except everything is different. The mortgage is paid off, or close enough that the end date is a specific month on a specific calendar and not an abstract future concept. The equity is real. The investments that grew from the gap between what you paid and what everyone around you was paying, those are real too. You are not rich in a way that shows. You are secure in a way that doesn't need to. A 2024 ARP survey found that 75% of Americans over 50 want to stay in their current home for the rest of their lives. Not because they can't afford to leave, because they finally understand what stability actually feels like from the inside. And it turns out it doesn't look impressive. It looks like a Monday morning with coffee and a chipped countertop and a yard that was always just a little too small. You sit with that for a moment. There was no ceremony when the decision paid off. No headline. No one called to say you'd been right. The moment you'd spent years imagining, the moment it all clicked, arrived quietly, and then life just kept moving, the way it always does. The house didn't change. You moved around inside it differently. That's the whole story. And outside, somewhere, someone is standing in front of a house for the first time. The agent is calling it a great starter home. The word starter is landing exactly the way it's meant to. They are already thinking about the next one.